right when I saw her. So don't say it's over.
Shows that make you laugh. Shows that make you think. Music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Well, greetings and salutations, everyone. You have tuned in to Dr. Judy WTF right here on UBN Radio, and I am your host, Walt Lusk, and Dr. Judy had a really long session. She will probably be here in a few moments. If you want to tune in, you can catch us on podcasts at iTunes or Stitcher, and we, of course, our website is drjudywtf.com, and last week we continued with our series, as we are every week these days, on Hole in the Soul, and we really focused on the Narcissistic Personality Disorder, which some feel was one of our better shows. So if you want to check that out, you sure can. And this week we are going to do the kind of the converse of that, which is the borderline personality disorder. It's actually one that was just diagnosed from the DSM, which is sort of the psychological Bible, only in 1980. So it's a reasonable recent diagnosis. But I wanted to start with a quote from Les Brown, and it says, "Someone's opinion of you does not have to become your reality. You and all the people are worthy of being treated with respect. You get what you put up with, not what you deserve. Most of all, you deserve to be treated with respect." So the question really is, what is a borderline and how does that work? Well, an overwhelming majority are women, which is kind of interesting because they kind of want or need a strong guy, which ups their chances, of course, of having a narcissist as a boyfriend. And over 75% of all narcissists are men. So that would kind of fit hand in glove, right? And the question is, borderline personality disorder, it has a couple things. One, problems regulating with emotions and thoughts, impulsive and reckless behavior, and an unstable relationships with others. And so we're going to be addressing that in a lot of ways. And what we use here, as Dr. Judy is getting set up, welcome, is her mind map, which she developed over 12 years ago. And it's an amazingly effective system of therapy. And she actually had a session, maybe we'll talk about it at some point, with a 9-year-old, which was just phenomenal, first session. And it was a great session. But welcome, Judy. Thanks for being here.
And thanks for warming up the audience without me. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Anytime.
Oh, that sounds better. Is this,
there we go.
Good?
Let's see. Were you 4 or 5? Oh, let's try this one. We're definitely having technical difficulties.
Okay,
that should be better.
There
we go.
That sounds so much better. Okay.
Welcome to the studio now.
Thank you.
I'll give you the microphone now.
Okay. Well, tonight I thought we would concentrate not so much as on the actual labeling of things, because labels mean very little
they do.
In terms of the treatment itself. What I'm interested in is the wound, the injury, and we're going to talk about borderline personality disorder from the point of view of the hole in the soul.
Yes.
And the type of injury that the person incurs in order to have a series of instability of mood, instability of sense of self, feelings of deep abandonment, real deep fears of being abandoned. And they act out a lot. So,
and we've got a test we're going to go over, I think, and a couple of issues. By the way, this is a call-in show. And we would love to hear from you if you're feeling borderline, or actually no one. Our call-in number is area code 323-284-7826. And Judy just finished her first fiction book called Lucid Darkness. And for everyone that calls in, will receive a free copy of her book, which is going to be released tomorrow.
Yay!
It's hot off the press.
I just want to I just want to show everybody.
Actually, you know what we can do?
It looks like this. There it is. Special thank you to Carl Hennigan, my co-writer. Very special thanks to Walt Lusk, who stayed up.
Stayed up, actually.
Stayed out and stayed up.
And editing the book. It was over the summer.
Really,
it was, editing's a lot of work. It's,
sure is.
picking sentence structure and words to modify. And, it was a great experience.
Absolutely.
I'm ready for your next one, which you started working on.
I already started working on it, and my assistant Josh Golitsky, who edited it, and a lot of people did some phenomenal work. Solomon Augustine, my artist, and friends, Connie Dwyer, and my cousin Eva Rosenberg.
Judy,
and,
I hate to break the news. This isn't the Academy Awards.
I
yet.
know,
Okay,
I
sorry.
know, but I'm that way. I've got to acknowledge everybody, and I'm just so thankful for everyone's
and Mom.
support. Oh, right, of course. The Wounder. How can we forget everybody? So anyway, we are going to talk about the hole in the soul from the perspective of deep abandonment issues. Last time we talked about the narcissistic personality disorder from the point of view of narcissistic injury. Now, in the case of the borderline personality disorder, it's a little bit different because
it's very different.
It's a little different, very different, because borderlines tend to act out a lot. If you have seen Fatal Attraction,
the movie years ago, Glenn Close and Michael Douglas.
Yes, that is an example of the fictional depiction of a borderline personality disorder. Some people refer to them as bunny boilers. And sometimes
Bunny boilers.
Yeah, bunny boilers, because they can get really threatening, and they can really wreak havoc on your life. And it's very, very, their internal world is very, very disjointed and painful. And so they make sure that everybody else's external world
they feel
is
it, know
very,
it.
very painful and disjointed. And they are very good at acting out in several ways. Go ahead.
They do one of the following, and it's very reckless in its approach.
Or some of the following.
Yeah, some of the following. Yeah, either was one or more, or some of the following. Yeah, reckless in terms of they engage in unsafe sex, abuse alcohol and drugs, binge eat, gamble, spend money recklessly, and I know some that drive crazily.
And cut themselves.
And that's coming. They nearly
sorry.
always have an empty feeling. It's just, again, the epitome, in my view, of hole in the soul.
Right.
Sometimes when they're stressed out, they feel abandoned. They get paranoid. Sometimes they just space out or disassociate, which, God, that'd be kind of fun, even if you're not sober. They idealize others.
And devalue them.
And then, no, first they idealize them.
First
basically when they first meet him, it's like, man, you're just flipping amazing.
You're amazing.
Amazing. And then, and usually and many times the same damn day, you're not.
Yes. And depending on their internal state, you are and you're not. It's the red light, green light. And you never know where you stand with them.
It's hot and cold. I was in a relationship some time ago where that way. I mean, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we were having a great conversation and texting, and by 8 o'clock that night, I never want to talk to you again. So it was the epitome, in my view, of being hot and cold. It was just crazy.
I think everyone's been in a borderline or narcissistically, bent that way relationship, and we all know what it feels like to be on the receiving end. And I do believe that one of the reasons I am a psychologist is because within each individual, we've got to taste the little aspects of ourselves that are just a little bit borderline and a little bit narcissistic and a little bit histrionic and a little bit paranoid, because ultimately I think we all have elements of. Now,
yeah, we do. On all this stuff. And by the way, stay tuned, because one of the highlights of our show is we shrink that tune. And we've got a really popular one by Madonna, nonetheless.
Yeah.
So stay tuned to that.
I just want to give you a little history on the Shrink the Tune tonight, which I won't tell you the song because we kind of like to leave it for the last minute. But this song was a song that I listened to when I was in my graduate program. And whenever this song came on, I just thought of all these borderline personality disorders that I was treating. And it's certainly was a song that made me realize that I was losing my mind in the course of treating these people, because they do get under your skin.
They do.
By the way, they're very, very fun.
They
and
are.
They're super lively. They're oftentimes very imaginative, creative. I find that a lot of the people in my practice who demonstrate a lot of the borderline features are in the entertainment industry. Also, a lot of the people that demonstrate the narcissistic features are in the entertainment industry.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so we're in the entertainment industry. What does that say about us? Wow. Okay,
Let's
so.
see. Well, but wait, there's more. Sudden shifts in the way they look at themselves and in life. Their mood can shift between extreme periods of anxiety, depression, or being irritable in a matter of hours or days.
Yes.
Their view of others can shift dramatically as well, without warning. They say most of their romantic relationships have been very intense, but not very stable.
Right, and they go through relationship after relationship because really what's going on with them is there's no internal regulational system. So their emotional thermometer is broken, and they look for this regulation from external sources. So that if that external source fails them, they will go into a borderline rage. And so if you're in a relationship with a borderline, then you'll notice that if you don't exactly do what they want you to do, if you fail them in any sense, and this is really similar also to the narcissistic personality disorder, but the narcissist is more tightly wound. They're well defended. They've got the narcissistic defense, whereas the borderline has really, really loose boundaries, which is why they go from partner to partner and why they're so promiscuous, which is part of also one of the features of the personality disorder.
Yes.
So their boundaries are really loose, and the boundaries are loose because they've been wounded in the mother-infant bonding stage, where that bonding didn't quite go right. It was inconsistent. There were not probably, but there were attachment breaks there. I'm thinking of one particular patient that I treated who had a lot of attachment breaks, and as a result of these attachment breaks, I called her the ragdoll syndrome child.
Ragdoll.
Okay? The ragdoll. So come here, go away, please me this way, no, it's not good enough, throw away. So it was just a ragdoll, and and she had, unfortunately, a narcissistic piece of it also in there. So she had the borderline acting out, along with the narcissistic feature of demeaning, devaluing, and destroying.
There you go, the 3Ds of narcissism.
So sometimes borderline narcissist, borderline features show up in the very same person, and sometimes the borderlines get attracted to the narcissist because, as our show is called, it's called What the Freud, WTF, and WTF means that we repeat themes from the blueprint of our past. So if we've been wounded in a certain way, we're going to pick the wounder. So it's a perfect match. It's a match made in hell. Borderline, who's been wounded, will pick the narcissist who has no empathy.
Right. And it is definitely a match made in hell.
Definitely. And so what we see here is we see, if you put the mind map up, I can show you in...
Those of you who want to see the mind map, it is at drjudywtf.com.
Thank you.
And it's up there, all 9 panels.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm just going to tell you the process of how this is formed so you can understand a little bit about why all the acting out and why all the loose boundaries and how they get triggered, and the core belief of the borderline, which is, I'm nothing, I'm empty. I'm nothing without a man, I'm nothing without a woman. By the way, most borderlines are females.
Yes.
And some of them end up suiciding.
They do, and the epitome of acting out and imploding.
They implode, right. They do implode. They do explode as well, but ultimately they're not the ones that will shoot up the movie theater. They're the ones that will ultimately do themselves in. Yeah. So that's a borderline.
And as we like to say on the show, if you feel like imploding or exploding, just simply pick up the phone and unload and get on the couch with Dr. Judy.
And we love, love, love call-ins. So
Absolutely.
please,
And the number is 323-284-7826.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so let's put the mind map up so we can go through how these
Back up.
how these wounds cause us to go into our symptoms. So if we look at the mind map, the top row represents the creation of the problem. So if you go to panel 1 represents the wound. And if you're, of course, listening and not seeing the show, just think about the first process in the wounding process and the human disconnect process is from birth to the first 2-3 years of life. So during that period of time, if mother doesn't give eye contact, consistency, unconditional love in the form of consistent feedback, if there is no breastfeeding, if baby goes into child care too early, if there are inconsistent child care providers, this sets the psyche up for pathology. So if you do have an opportunity to go to the mind map, then you will see in panel 1 and panel 2 and panel 3 is the creation of the problem. And so what we do is we ingest through our contact with our primary caregiver, we blueprint the psychological feedings or lack thereof from our primary caregiver, and then we ingest it, and we ingest their darkness and their light, meaning all of their pathology. And again, I really want to emphasize that this is multi-generational. This is just not starting with mom or dad. This is starting with grandma, grandpa, their grandmas, their grandpas, and so on. And then there's a trickle down, and by the end of the showdown, tag, we're it. We're the beginning of the next generation. So whatever we don't clean up here gets passed down to our next generation.
True, and what I like to say, it doesn't matter how you start. It's more important how you finish.
Right.
And the blueprint that we're started with can definitely be redone.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that's what I've designed this particular system
exactly
to do.
what you've
Is what I've designed it to do is to take the ingest, the digest, and the manifest, which is the encoding. Okay, so first there's the wound, and then there's the encoding and the reaction to the wound, and then it encodes into the fiber of the person's psyche, into the fiber of their being, and it encodes into their negative core belief, which is, in the case of the borderline, the wound is, I'm nothing. I'm empty.
I'm empty, I'm nothing.
Right. In the case of the narcissist, it's, I'm not important enough. So you can see that the two make a nice pair. I'm nothing, I'm not important enough, me. And what happens from there is that the narcissist will trigger the borderline pathology, and then she, typically it is a she, will fall into chaos, and then she'll fall into defense mechanisms, which are the ones that Walt talked about: the cutting, the shopping, the overspending, the acting out sexually,
driving, drugs,
driving really fast, irresponsible, impulsive.
And the last one here is crazy. Is like they have enough problems in their life that are negatively impacting their ability to do anything, from either going to school, going to work, being with family, being with friends, or even have a romantic relationship.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
It's definitely chaos.
It's a lot of chaos. It's a very chaotic relationship to be in, and you never know whether you're coming or going. You never know whether you're amazing or amazing, or if you are just going to be thrown under the bus and declared a goner. So this is the pathology, and again, there's the ingestion, the digestion, and the manifestation, which is the core belief that encodes. And then every time somebody touches on that wound or the core belief that you're nothing, you're empty, then it trips up like a lever and causes the person to fall into panels 4, 5, 6, chaos, defense mechanisms, and ultimately an explosion, and ultimately an implosion, where they may go so far as to cut themselves or
cutting
off themselves. Okay, so that is the entire way the system flows. So again, please call in, and for the persons that call in today, I am giving away a free copy of Lucid Darkness.
It's a thriller. It's a fiction book. It was written, and the concept was by Dr. Judy. It's going to be a trilogy. So the second book is now being Dr. Judy does not know how to sit still. So
what's that?
Well, yeah, what is that?
I don't know.
So that one will be out sometime later this year, I'm sure.
No, not later this year. It's being uploaded to
Their
Amazon.
second book will be out later
that
this year,
one.
and they said the first book will be out tomorrow. So you can get it. You can get the first copy of it if you go to. And again, the number 323-284-7826. So there's about 9 things that we can talk about. We've kind of gone to the broad brush if you want to dive into these, and you can pontificate of
Sure.
about 9 signs that your girlfriend just might be kind of sort of maybe a borderline. And the first one is fear of abandonment. In other words, desperate attempts to avoid abandonment.
Real or imagined, by the way.
Real or imagined. They cannot tolerate parting. And it doesn't matter whether they're leaving the job or they're just leaving with or hanging out with their best friend or family. I mean, it's anything and everything.
Yes.
The second one is they're volatile relationships. Okay, they're unstable and intense. They have low self-esteem. They cannot accept that they are people worthy of love. They project empty feelings to their partner, sort of a love-hate emotions.
Yes.
And again, in a blink of an eye, you can be either a hero or a jerk.
Yes.
Yep. But they can be, Prince Charming 1 second and degraded floor mat the next. Yep. The third is and this one for me is a key. Their inability to know who they really are. All right. Their sense of self-image is just chronically unstable.
Yes.
Okay. They sort of have an adolescent mode for the rest of their life.
And so therefore they're really prone to depression. Because
Yes.
if their needs are not met, which is why they're exhibiting these features in the first place, is because their needs were not met, their primary needs were not met. If again their needs are not met, if there's a failure in mirroring, if there's a failure to nourish and nurture the person, they will have very, very severe reactions, because what's happening is that the person that they're in a relationship with is triggering the file of the mother wound. Okay, so it's like
Triggering the file of the mother wound.
right, like a computer. There's a file in there, and that file is really deep, it's really unconscious, and that's why they're all over the map, so to speak, is because they don't know, they haven't connected the dots yet, that the reason they're acting this way is because really all the anger, all this pain really belongs not projected on their partner, but it belongs projected back on mom, primary caregiver, in a way where they can cleanse themselves. And by the way, I don't mean that the treatment means that you're now going to shame, blame, and throw mama under the bus. No, but there is a process where they need to detox the feelings that have been suppressed for so long and have gone symptomatic. I call it gone sideways into symptoms rather than flowing in terms of the self-expression. There is no self-expression because don't forget, babies have no words. Babies have no conception of what's going on. They just feel. They're reactors. So when we are injured in that first few years of life, we don't have words to describe, you hurt my feelings, I don't like how you abandoned me, how dare you give me over to a child care provider when you're my mom, why didn't you,
they don't have the tools or anything.
They don't.
No.
So part of what I do in my work is I play psychological detective, and I really love that because it's so challenging. And my cues, my breadcrumbs, so to speak, my cues
are the M&Ms or Reese's or
yeah, well, sometimes, not often though, but they're definitely the symptoms that the people bring in. My patients bring in all kinds of symptoms, and then we retrace the symptoms back to cause. We've got to work backwards because people don't understand why they're feeling anxious, depressed. Why am I cutting myself? Why am I shopaholic? Why am I feeling so horrible? My boyfriend dropped me and he wasn't even that great a guy, but I'm reeling in pain and I can't get over it. Why? Okay.
Well, you mentioned that might be a good segue for a patient you saw this week. It was a kid, a mom and a kid came in.
I had a very interesting.
Yeah, you talk about symptoms and identifying and going on a detective thing. This was amazing. You want to talk about that real quick?
Yes, and by the way, children are not labeled anything because they're in formative years, so we don't use borderline personality But this was the case. I call them my incubator babies, and I have a lot of patients that are incubator babies, and by that I mean people who were preemies, and they were put in incubators, and they didn't have the ability to
physically
connect on a regular basis
in the first few vital days of their life.
Correct. I have one patient who was basically she was about 2 pounds.
Wow.
2.5 pounds when she was born. And her mother was phenomenal because she took the baby and held the baby in her hand, and her breasts were swollen because the baby had no ability to suck, just was not strong enough to suck.
Right.
So she had to pump, and then with a little bit, with a
dropper.
little dropper, she had to feed the milk into her daughter's mouth. And so the incubator babies, when not handled right, when they're stuck in the incubator, the confines of the incubator, under the light, when they're not touched and handled on a regular basis, and remember, in order to have a healthy human psyche, we need touch, we need the sound of the mother's heartbeat, we need the breast milk, we need the eye contact, and we need consistency. So can you imagine the trauma on the human psyche to be born into a world with lights on you because the bilirubin count is up, so they have to put the lights on.
Right.
And then, of course, they're poking the little heel of the baby.
Their jaundice.
The jaundice, right? Okay, so there's just all of this intrusive work going on, and then the baby doesn't get the contact comfort from the mom. So I find that I have a part of my practice, I'm going to write a lot more about this and talk a lot more about this. And I think we're going to have a show on incubator babies next. I want to do that next.
Okay, that's good. Okay? Stay tuned, folks. We're going to talk about that next week.
That's right.
All right. So we're going to incubate it for a week and then have a show.
Okay. So one child that I'm working with currently, a little boy who has extreme anxiety, and he has sleep disorder. Cannot soothe himself, cannot fall asleep.
That's not fun.
Not fun. So, of course, he did want to be in the therapy because what 9-year-old child wants to be in therapy. So I had a big challenge in front of me, and so I decided to play psychological detective with him. And I asked him if he thought it might be worth his time to be here to figure out the mystery of why he's not sleeping properly. He says, yeah, fine, we'll do that. And so we started connecting the dots, and a dream that he shared was a dream about a being in some kind of a confined box, and the colors in the dream were greenish beige, very hospital colors.
Oh my gosh.
And then there was this kind of like a threatening thing on the wall. Okay? A threatening kind of creature on the wall.
Wow, that's scary.
And it was really, really scary. And as children don't quite put everything together, there was a missing link between the symptom and the wound. And we started connecting the dots, and this child is so bright that he got that the incubator and the colors, the beige and the green, were the colors of the incubator.
In the hospital.
And the lack of ability to sleep was because, A, he was always disrupted, constantly being poked.
Right.
So there was some post-traumatic stress going on that he never completed. And also he had a real rough relationship with mommy. And so he said to me, I thought it was brilliant. He did his own analysis. I gave him standing ovation on this one. He goes, and the reason I'm having a hard time with my mom is because I didn't see her first. I just thought that was brilliant.
And of course, what's scary is they actually remember the whole birth in the first few days of their life.
Well, that to me is fascinating.
Yes.
And there are studies to show that children have these memories, and usually these memories come out in dream material, because Sigmund
It's
Freud,
subconscious.
who I dedicate what the Freud
Yes.
name to, talked about the royal road to the unconscious. One of the royal roads to the unconscious is our dreams. And the dreams are the raw material through which we can start putting together the story. And so in this case, we talked about fact, and we talked about facts, and we talked about clues, and we talked about facts, and we talked about clues, until this little boy was able to put together the story
to lay the
line.
framework of it. Good.
Right. And so it'll be really interesting to see if the symptoms start going down, because what I find in my practice is the more you bring the unconscious to the conscious, you don't have to act it out any longer. So all of these birth traumas and all of these inabilities.
Now, all of that was in one session, right?
That was in one session.
Yeah, it's amazing. You covered more ground in one session than probably some therapists would in a month of Sundays or something.
You know what was really adorable is that he took the mind map, because I give everybody a
Yeah, you have a
copy of
little
the mind
postcard.
map. Yeah, and he crossed off panel 1, like, we're done. We understand the
wound.
The wound. We
Yeah, the
understand
wound.
where the problem came from.
The cause.
Check.
The
like,
cause.
Crossed off. Done. And I just watched this little boy do that, and it was so. I had this, this kind of like aha moment of, wow, it sure is beautiful to work with children, because they're so accessible. Adults are more defended. Okay, so back to the borderline personality.
And defensive. Yeah.
So back to the borderline personality disorder.
Well, I want to say one last thing is.
Go ahead.
That's one of the reasons why your therapy and your system is so effective, is because it's so goal oriented, right? You've got 9 panels. The first panel's done, so we're finished with that part. Now we move on to the next.
It's system oriented,
Yeah, it's
which is
system-oriented.
goal oriented,
Yeah.
and I'm teaching my patients to perceive the misperceptions of childhood, so that we can cleanse the lens of misperceptions.
Cleanse that
and we
lens.
can reboot the system, and instead of encoding the darkness, we can tear apart the old codes that were lies and misperceptions and distortions, and reboot the system. Literally unravel the DNA of the psyche is how I like to look at it.
So if you are seeing things a little cloudy today, even though here in Southern California it's kind of rainy, and you have a little more bright perspective, phone in, get on the couch. Number again is 323-284-7826, and you are listening to Dr. Judy WTF. I'm your host, Walt Lusk, and of course Dr. Judy Rosenberg is our illustrious leader of the mothership of the show.
And I just wanted to share another case study. It was
Sure.
a couple, and the woman had severe childhood abandonment issues. And what was going on in that dynamics is that she was projecting these fears of abandonment on her husband. And so he was feeling very, very burdened by this, because he had no intentions of abandoning her at all. He loves this woman very much. And the more she projected, the more he felt burdened by this.
And we have a caller.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Hi, thanks for calling. You're on the couch with Dr. Judy.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm listening. So what do I do? Do I just ask a question or make a comment?
Well, whatever you have a question, we will hopefully answer. Be our guest. Although you might want to turn your computer radio off so it doesn't echo in the background.
That's what I'm doing, because
Thank
it
you.
got confusing.
Thank you.
I am a patient of Dr. Judy.
Hi.
And
thank you for
hi.
calling in. I really appreciate it.
Hint, you saw me today. So
I think I know who you are, but we'll keep you confidential.
exactly. Well, I was calling to make a comment about the mind map that you have, and
Okay.
that it is so instrumental. I feel in I call it like a self-discovery process, and how it's helped me so much. And every time I heard you last week on the radio show, and I heard you tonight, and I'm still having aha moments from the time we first started until our session today.
I have them all the time with Judy. It's just nature with hanging out with Dr. Judy.
I so appreciate you saying that, and a lot of times all the time there's a partnership going on in the therapeutic bond, and it is a bond between the therapist and the person coming in for therapy, and sometimes part of the magic, and it is part of the magic, is the chemistry between the two people.
Yeah, it is.
And sometimes when the chemistry, and by chemistry I'm not talking about just arbitrarily so, when the person is really ready to come in and deal with their issues, and the person that is treating the other is really, really attuned to what's going on, there's this beautiful synergy that goes on. I call it the interconnected web of therapy. And when that occurs, there's such a gorgeous partnership, and it just feels like it feels like there's a co-creation of the therapy going on, and that doesn't always happen. I want you to know that, okay? So I just have so much fun when you come into the office, because I just feel that you're so on board. You're so very, very, I talk about permeable membranes and semi-permeable membranes and non-permeable membranes, and some people are just these permeable membranes that want to come in, that want to heal.
They're ready.
That want to unearth all of their darkness. And today we talked about a concept that's one of my favorite concepts, which is blueprinting off of our success.
Yes. That was exceptional.
Yes, I really enjoyed talking about this, because we have all of these areas where we feel not so light. We feel like we're in the darkness. And then there are areas of our life which I call island of competency. And everybody has these islands of competencies. It may be your work, it may be your ability to create art, or it might be your ability to be a great mother, or whatever it is. And oftentimes what we don't realize is that we have these islands of competencies because in these areas we have amazing core beliefs about ourselves, and because we select amazing team members to come on board, and because we have ability to really put up what I call a healthy semi-permeable membrane, which is letting in the good and keeping out the bad. And so when we can borrow from our own blueprint of our own island of competency and move that over to the areas that are less competent for us, and really analyze what are we doing right in those areas that we're not in our other
wouldn't
areas.
Those islands be maybe called like an oasis of sorts?
Oh, I like that. That's very beautiful.
Yeah, basically you're in your element, and it's an oasis, and you're successful in doing it relative to all the other stuff that we've got going on in our life.
And by the way, I just want to share, of course, respecting your confidentiality, that I take what I call a psychological temperature on people. And it's kind of like reading their before and their during and their after. And it is so rewarding to see your symptoms just going down, down, down. The anxiety that was way up there, and the depression, and the stress that was in you,
the anger.
And the anger. Okay, and then we talked about how the anger is the depression is anger turned inward. Okay, and then the anxiety is a defense against the depression, and the panic attacks were when the anxiety just blew through the roof. And so all of these symptoms that were so interconnected that you came in with are now starting to subside, because what you're doing, you're doing is you're absolutely self-reflecting, and you're self-correcting, and you're moving yourself through a process that is really the basis of the work that we're doing, which is you're starting to really put yourself first.
Yes.
And I'm looking out for number one, and that's not a bad thing.
No. Did you have another question or?
No, I wanted to call in and make a comment, and I hope every parent tune in and listen to the show because it's incredible. The connection, especially starting with panel 1, everyone should listen to it.
Well, thank you so much for
appreciate
calling.
you.
And I guess next time you see Judy, she'll give you a copy of her book, her new book.
Of course I will.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
Great show, you guys.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening. Well, there you go. A from, through, and to.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so going back to the hole in the soul.
Yes.
The borderline features. Very, very, very painful.
Oh, it's a lot of painful, and from what I read here, it's a lot of chaos. I mean, inability to know who you really are. I mean, that's scary, right?
And there goes that thermometer, the internal thermometer, which mommy was supposed to supply by her consistency, is not built into the DNA of that individual. So how else is she supposed to monitor herself other than through other people? And so when that other person that she's attached to withdraws in any way, then her entire self-esteem just caves in.
Right, it plummets.
And then she has nothing left, and then she goes and does desperate acts to pump that all up.
And what's interesting is the number 4 of the 9 things, if you might have a borderline girlfriend, is suicidal tendencies. So they feel intense rejection, right?
That's right.
And anger and self-hated. That's exactly what you've talked about. And then as a result, they go out and do risky things, whether one-night stands, substance abuse, alcohol, crazy driving.
Just another thing I wanted to mention about that, because they have no boundaries.
That's number 5. Impulsive acts and lack of boundaries.
They don't protect themselves sexually,
No,
so
they don't.
they're very, very prone to getting pregnant. They're very, very prone to sexually transmitted diseases.
Yeah, they are.
This is a lack of boundaries.
Yep, that's number 5. Number 6 is, which kind of fits, is a mood roller coaster. Highly unstable mood, right? Sometimes they overspend. They may be cocky. Sometimes they may be really excited, or they have lack of energy.
Yes.
Yeah. 7 is feeling of meaninglessness, which again is they're empty. They feel dissatisfied. They're present but not there. You feel like you don't know at all if you don't know them at all. There's no topics to discuss. And the last one, 2 more, shows rages. We talked about that. Anger, easily provoked to anger. And the last one is that you might be dating a borderline, is they're paranoid and loss of awareness. So under normal stress, they feel very dissatisfied, distant, and unaware of what's really transpired. They're causing their pain, and they're in a lot of pain and grief. So
during another episode, I talked about attention deficit disorder, which I call licking your emotional wounds, because when you're
I don't know if I pay
distracted-
attention to that one.
I know you didn't. I don't want to interrupt you. Continue licking, Walt, okay?
I'm a good licker.
You are a good licker of your emotional wounds. And so what happens is that people get distracted by their internal pain, and so therefore they cannot pay attention to the external world, and so therefore they will lose things, and they will not be able to focus on their homework, for example, or their studies. And so a lot of their life is very, very internally directed versus externally directed. And in the course of the therapy, once they start connecting the dots between the disconnect, the early disconnect, the mother-infant disconnect primarily, and then again reinforced by the father disconnect oftentimes, then they can start understanding that really this has little to do with who they are. It has everything to do with how they were blueprinted, and then they can start forming a core of self that's centered around setting boundaries for themselves, that's centered around understanding that they can now develop skills of self-soothing as opposed to relying on other people to soothe them for them, and start building this core so their defense mechanisms are not that permeable, and therefore they don't get into situations that can really infect them psychologically and even physically.
Well, what's interesting is, in reading what I'd read a little bit, is there's not really a cure, if you will. It's not like a magic pill you can take or some kind of drug that can, address your symptoms. The only way to do that truly is through therapy.
From identifying the problem and taking a look at the reactions to the problem and that encoding of emptiness that forms into the core belief, and dismantling the whole encoding and then recoding ourselves, because really we are responsible for cleaning ourselves for the next generation.
Right. We definitely, this could be multi-generational. If you're not focused on raising your child, then and doing all that's necessary to be connected to them when in the early years, it's just going to repeat itself.
And for those of you who are not planning on having children, then it doesn't matter. Cleaning yourself so that you don't project on other people and that you don't ruin the bonding that you have, because sadly, what we all want is we want to be close. We want to be bonded. But the way that our defense mechanisms are set up is that we want the bond, but then we kill off the bond. And the reason we kill off the bond is because we're repeating the blueprint of the past. The mother killed off the bond, so now the person kills off the bond. It's my turn now to do it.
Yes. And the goal, of course, is to have less or no hole in the soul. Yeah. And for those of you, actually, I'm going to put a real quick plug, who are listening to us that aren't in the area, the Southern California area. Dr. Judy, probably in the next 30 to 60 days, will be having a way to have therapy via Skype. So stay tuned for that, and we'll be making an announcement of that. It is now time for our song. We're going to shrink that tune. And your copy's right there.
And by the way, this is one of my favorite songs. And this is a song I listened to when I was in graduate school. And oh boy, whenever I heard this song, I thought about all the patients that were being set my way in the clinic at which I was working. So
and this is entitled "Borderline" of all things, performed by Madonna. So I'm going to read the song. We're going to shrink it and then play the tune. Something in the way you love me won't let me be. I don't want to be your prisoner, so baby, won't you set me free? Stop playing with my heart. Finish what you start. When you make my love come down, if you want to let me know, baby, let it show. Honey, don't fool around.
Okay, this is so perfect in line with what we're saying. I so love this song as a representation of tonight's topic, because something in the way you love me. So there is the repetition principle. She's not happy with the way the person's loving her, because she's a prisoner of how he's going to respond to her. So she's not free. So if he's nice to her, she feels good. If he's not so nice to her, she doesn't feel so good. So when you
that means it's also dependent upon whether he is or nice or not nice,
right,
as to whether or not how she feels. So her whole feeling at that point is dependent upon whether he's nice to her or not.
Right. So you make my love come down. So here she is. She's empty, and he's the thermometer making her love go up and down.
Yep.
And baby, don't fool around, meaning don't fool around with my emotions. You know how vulnerable I am.
Just try to understand I've given all I can, 'cause you got the best of me. Borderline, in the chorus, borderline feels like I'm going to lose my mind. You just keep pushing my love over the borderline.
So here she is. She's empty. She's given all she can. She will try frantically to avoid real or imagined abandonment. So she's usually an overgiver and an overpleaser. She's given all she can. And he's got the best of her because he's the narcissist usually. So he's vampired out of her everything.
Yep.
And now she feels like she's going to lose her mind. But it's worth losing her mind because she doesn't want to lose the love object. Remember, they don't want to lose the object that they're tied to, because there's the nourishment.
Keep on pushing me, baby. Don't you know you drive me crazy? You just keep on pushing my love over the borderline. Something in your eyes is making such a fool of me. When you hold me in your arms, you love me till I just can't see. But then you let me down when you look around. Baby, you just can't be fooled.
Found.
Oh, found. Excuse me. Stop driving me away. I just want to stay. There's something I just gotta say.
Yeah, the found part I didn't want you to miss.
Excuse me?
Well, it
also rhymes.
It's so important because, baby, you just can't be found. In other words, she's paranoid. She's searching in his eyes.
She's lost.
She's lost, and
Yeah.
he's nowhere to be found because he's probably unempathic to begin with. So he's always letting her down, and basically she just wants to stay, like, please just be there for me. And usually she's tied up with somebody who's not going to be there for her.
Just try to understand. I've given all I can because you've got the best of me. Keep pushing me, baby. Don't you know you're driving me crazy? You just keep pushing my love over the borderline. In the last stanza, look what your love has done to me. Come on, baby, set me free. You just keep on pushing my love over the borderline. You cause me such pain. I think I'm going insane. What does it take to make you see? You just keep on pushing my love over the borderline.
So,
Borderline by Matana.
So there's not a lot of love here, but there seems to be a lot of pain here. And again, match made in hell. She's probably bonded to a narcissist because her mother was a narcissist, most likely. So narcissistic mothers make borderline personality disorders. And there's the match made in hell.
Match made in hell. Folks, thanks for so much listening. Next week, we're going to talk about incubation babies. And if you missed last week's show on narcissism, can't encourage you enough to check that out. We are Dr. Judy WTF. I'm Walt Lusk with Dr. Judy Rosenberg. You can check us out online at www.drjudywtf.com, and we're on Twitter and Facebook of the same. So God bless everyone. Thank you so much for listening. And here's our tune, Borderline Tune.
Did it disappear?
I killed our thing.
There's feeling of emptiness here.
Yeah. Where'd it go?